What's up, my dudes? I'm here on my Arcanist with a new build I've been playing, and it's easily the highest damage build I have ever played on. I will say early on that this build does require quite a bit of DLC content and it's quite difficult to obtain, so if that's not for you, I do apologize, but maybe you'll find this build interesting and it might help you make the decision to buy the DLC that's needed. Anyways, the build I'm sharing is one I found on Rye's channel. He creates some seriously powerful builds and is a very successful DPS, so make sure to give his channel a look over. You might find something that catches your eye. As with my previous YouTuber build showcase, this video will not be diving super deep into how to make the build, but will instead discuss the pros and cons, what's needed for the build, and many useful tips to help you decide if you want to create this build. The entire build layout will be in the description of the video for you if you do decide that you want to build it, and the link to the original video from Rye's channel will also be posted there. Now let's go ahead and jump right into what you're here for. This build is capable of dishing out an insane amount of damage. Like I said earlier, it's the highest damage build I personally have ever played. But where is this build useful? You're going to want to run this build in trials and dungeons. It's really not going to cut it for the solo arenas, fighting world bosses solo, and the like. Really anywhere that you are going to be taking damage. It's the glassiest of the glass cannon builds, and it's not designed to take damage without a healer around. Now let's get into the pros of this build. Firstly, damage output. As I've been saying, it's very easy to put out an insane amount of damage, and it doesn't take too much skill to do so. Secondly, the bar rotation. Bar rotation is very easy to get used to. All you need to do is pay attention to your dots and use the beam laser, and then more beam laser. Thirdly, and this is kind of a reach, but if you replace the camouflaged hunter skill on your back bar with vigor, it can do quite well with solo content. I personally wouldn't recommend it for the arenas. Now, for the cons. Firstly, this build is designed to be a high tier DPS. It excels at putting out damage, but is far behind in just about every other aspect. As I said, it's a glass cannon. You will die easily without incoming heals. Secondly, you have no self heals or reinforcement skills on either bar. You are maximizing your damage output here, so that makes sense. And thirdly, functionality. This build really is meant solely to play as a DPS for trials and dungeons. It limits the content you're able to run it with, so keep that in mind if you're looking to do other content. Right, so what gear sets are we going to be running? We'll start with the Velothi Your Mage's Amulet. This amulet is part of the Necrom chapter, so it will require that to be owned. It will also require the ability to scry, which comes with the Greymoor DLC. One of the 5 leads is in the Scrivener's Hall dungeon, so you will need that DLC content as well. I realize that's a huge inconvenience for those that don't have the DLC, but bear with me to the end and maybe this video can help you pull the trigger on purchasing that content for yourself. The headpiece we are running on this build is just the Slimecraw mask for that extra crit chance, which is obtained in the Veteran Wayrest Sewers dungeon. The 2 sets we are going to run are Pillar of Nirn, which is often regarded as one of the best medium sets for DPSers to use. So even if you don't make this build, I recommend getting a set anyways because you may end up needing it in the future. This set is obtained in the Falkreath Hold dungeon, so you will need the Horns of Reach DLC to acquire this set. We're also running the Perfected Coral Riptide set. This set is found in the Dreadsail Reef trial of the High Isle chapter. Yes, I know, it's not an easy set to obtain. Trust me, I do know. I went through hell and back to get it. I think the longest run I had for Veteran Dreadsail Reef was like 5 hours. Do not be like me and stay for that, I highly regret it. If you don't feel like chasing the perfected set for that extra 600 critical chance, that's perfectly okay. See what I did there? Anyways, run the normal trial and get yourself a non-perfected set. It's still going to put out an insane amount of damage. As you can see, this set increases the damage you deal based on your missing stamina. I will say, I've seen my weapon damage go over 10,000 before running this build in trials, so keep that in mind, you're really going to hurt. The last bit for the equipment, we're going to be using the Maelstrom's Perfected Inferno Staff. If you struggle with getting the Maelstrom or Veteran weapons, I highly recommend you watch this video of mine to learn something about getting those weapons that you probably didn't know about. As I said earlier, I'm not diving into the exact details of the build. Everything you need to know how to fully create it will be in the description of the video, along with a link to the original video posted by Rye. Overall, I think this build is amazing. It's my go-to build for when I'm running any difficult content as a DPS. As I've said throughout the video though, it does require a lot of DLC content, all of which you can see here. It's also a very difficult build to fully achieve, requiring many runs of the Falkreath Hold dungeon, as well as the Dreadsail Reef trial. If you do decide that you want this build, I can't say with confidence that it's worth the work to get it, but there's a lot of work that goes into getting it, so good luck. I wish I could provide you all with a free-to-play version of this build, but it relies so heavily on DLC content that it would seem kinda pointless. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments, and I'll do the best I can to help you out. And with that, I will see you in the next one, my dudes.